He was ice-dressed in Armani, the wolf of Gangnam. That's what they called Jin Hyuk in the whispered conversations of souls underground. The man who controlled 40% of the city's luxury nightclub empire, who had 200 men ready to bleed at his command, whose phone calls made politicians delete their call logs. His penthouse stretched across 3 floors of the Hangang Tower, where even the air tasted like money and consequence. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a city of neon and ambition, but inside, everything was cold marble and sharper edges, black leather, steel fixtures, silence so thick it felt like pressure against your eardrums. Jin Hyuk was 32 years old and had never lost. Not a negotiation, not a territory war, not a single night of sleep to something as pedestrian as guilt. Then there was Amara, 19 years old, surviving on 3 hours of sleep and instant noodles that cost 801 at the convenience store. She cleaned office buildings from 11 at night until 7 in the morning, slept on a friend's couch that smelled like cigarettes and broken promises, attended free Korean language classes at a community center in ET1, where the fluorescent lights flickered like dying stars. She was invisible by design, by necessity, by the cruel mathematics of being undocumented in a country that didn't see her as human, just as labor, temporary and disposable, but invisibility has a way of shattering. 3 months before the moment that would change everything, Amarit didn't know Jin Hyuk existed. She was just trying to make it to next Tuesday with enough money to wire home to Lagos, where her mother needed insulin, and her little brother needed school fees, and her sister needed to believe that running away had been worth something. 3 months later, Jin Hyuk would stand in a doorway watching his daughter, his silent, traumatized 6-year-old daughter who hadn't spoken in 2 years, call this African stranger mom, and the word would break him. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. This is the story of how a teenage immigrant with no credentials became the only person who could reach a mafia boss's broken child. How a woman who cleaned toilets for survival became the voice a little girl had lost the night her mother drowned in blood and shattered glass. This isn't just a love story. It's about the families we lose, the ones we build from ashes, and the moment when a child's first word in 2 years rewrites the definition of everything you thought you knew about power. But 3 months before that miracle, Amara's world was measured in square meters she was paid to scrub. The Hangang Tower rose like a glass monument to wealth in the heart of Gangnam. 49 floors of luxury apartments where a single month's rent cost more than Amara would earn in a year. She entered through the service entrance at 11:07 p.m. every Wednesday and Saturday, scanning a badge that identified her only as Cleaner 847. The basement level smelled like industrial disinfectant and the particular loneliness of fluorescent-lit concrete. She'd change into her uniform, gray shirt, gray pants, everything gray like they wanted the cleaning staff to blend into the walls, and take the service elevator to her assigned floors. Floors 30 through 43. Commercial offices mostly. Empty at night except for the occasional workaholic junior associate who'd avoid eye contact like her existence was something embarrassing. But the 45th floor, that's where everything was different. The elevator required a special key card to access anything above 44. Amara had cleaned the building for 3 months and never been higher than the executive suites on 43. But she'd heard the other cleaners talk. Whispers in Tagalog and Vietnamese and Bengali during smoke breaks in the loading dock, the penthouse. The 45th through 47th floors. That's where he lived. She followed the emergency lighting down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than her family's house in Lagos. Maintenance was supposed to meet her at the service entrance, but the hallway was empty except for the mechanical hum of broken heating and crying. Quiet, muffled. The sound of someone trying desperately not to be heard. Amara should have waited for maintenance, should have stayed in her lane, done her job, remained invisible. But she'd grown up with younger siblings. She knew that specific frequency of childhood despair, that particular pitch of a child crying alone in the dark. She followed the sound. The service stairwell door was ajar. Emergency exit. The kind that wasn't supposed to be accessible without alarms triggering. But there was no alarm. Just silence and the soft, broken sound of weeping. Amara pushed the door open carefully. A little girl sat on the concrete stairs in expensive silk pajamas, pink with white lace, the kind Amara had only seen in department store windows. 6 years old, maybe 7. Korean. Beautiful in the way children are before the world teaches them about beauty. Long black hair tangled around her face, knees pulled to her chest. Small hands pressed against her ears like she was trying to block out a sound only she could hear. She didn't look up when Amara entered. Didn't acknowledge her presence at all. Just rocked slightly, tears streaming down her face in total silence. Crying without sound, grief without voice. Amara knew she should call someone. Security, the supervisor. Someone with authority and permission and the right to be in this space. But the child's silent sobbing did something to her chest, cracked something open that all her survival instincts had tried to keep sealed. She sat down on the stairs, 3 steps below the girl, not approaching, not touching, just present. Hey, Amara said softly in English, then repeated in broken Korean. Gwenchana. It's okay. The girl's crying didn't stop, but her rocking slowed fractionally. Amara didn't try to talk more, didn't ask questions or make demands. She just sat there in the cold stairwell, in a building she wasn't supposed to be in, next to a child she'd never been introduced to, and started humming a Nigerian lullaby. The child who learns slowly. Her grandmother had sung it to her when she was small, when the world felt too big and too frightening and sleep wouldn't come. The melody was simple, repetitive, the kind of song that exists in the space between heartbeat and breath, the rhythm of maternal comfort that transcends language. The little girl's fingers stopped trembling. Her breathing, ragged and sharp, began to slow, deepen, synchronize with the melody. She still didn't look at Amara, still didn't speak, but after 2 verses the crying stopped. They sat like that for 11 minutes, Amara humming softly, the child breathing, the broken heating system ticking in the walls around them like a mechanical lullaby of its own. Then footsteps, sharp, purposeful, military precise. Yeah. The voice was elderly, female, and furious. Amara looked up to see a Korean woman in her 60s, wearing a formal hanbok even at 3 a.m., standing in the stairwell doorway like an avenging angel of propriety and outrage. Niga yogi ya. What are you doing here? Behind her, 2 security guards in black suits moved into position, hands resting on concealed weapons. Amara stood slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. She'd learned that survival reflex in her first week in Seoul, how to make herself small, harmless, unworthy of violence. I heard crying, she said in careful Korean. I just wanted to make sure she was okay. The older woman, Mrs. Kang, she'd learn later, the head housekeeper in Jin Hyuk's family's longtime retainer, looked at her like she'd found a rat in the rice. You touched the young miss? No, ma'am. The child hasn't slept through the night since her mother died. Mrs. Kang said quietly, nightmares, always the same, water and drowning and screaming. She wakes up choking on air that isn't there, sometimes 3, 4 times a night. It's so used to hoping for herself again. The room was beautiful and terrible. Gold pink walls, white furniture, stuffed animals arranged with museum precision and shelves, toys that had never been played with. Books in Korean and English stacked neatly, spines uncracked. A 4-poster bed with silk canopy, and in that bed a small figure curled on her side facing the window. Ji-woo. She didn't turn when they entered, didn't acknowledge their presence at all. Just lay there in expensive pajamas, staring at the Seoul skyline with eyes that had seen too much. Agassi, Mrs. Kang said gently, young miss, your new caretaker is here. Her name is Amara. She'll be with you today. No response, not even a blink. Mrs. Kang looked at Amara with an expression that said, see, impossible. Then she left, closing the door with a soft click. Amara stood in the doorway of the most beautiful prison she'd ever seen, looking at a 6-year-old girl who'd locked herself away from the world and wondered how the hell a 19-year-old with no training was supposed to reach her. Then she remembered she'd already done it once. She didn't approach the bed, didn't try to talk. She just sat down on the plush carpet near the door, pulled out the cheap Korean textbook she'd been studying from, and started reading aloud. Badly, with terrible pronunciation, stumbling over honorifics and verb conjugations. 20 minutes later, Ji-woo's shoulders relaxed. 40 minutes later, the child rolled over to look at her. An hour later, Ji-woo got out of bed, walked across the room, and sat down 3 feet away from Amara. Not close, not touching, but present. And in Jin Hyuk's office, 1 floor below, watching the security feed with Sung Min beside him, the wolf of Gangnam felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. It was terrifying. 3 weeks into Amara's employment, Ji-woo still hadn't spoken, but she'd started eating. Small bites at first, watching Amara carefully like checking for poison or judgment, then full meals when Amara prepared them. Improvised versions of jollof rice made with Korean ingredients, plantains fried in sesame oil that weren't quite right, but close enough to make Amara's chest ache with homesickness. Ji-woo had started sleeping through the night. Not every night, but more often. When nightmares came, she'd pad down the hall to Amara's room and stand silently in the doorway until Amara woke up and lifted the blanket in invitation. The child would climb into bed, curl against Amara's side, and eventually sleep. No words, no explanations. Just the animal comfort of not being alone in the dark. She'd started drawing different pictures. Not drowning anymore. Now she drew 2 figures. One tall, one small, holding hands, standing in gardens, sitting at tables, always together, always connected. Jin Hyuk watched all of this through security cameras with an expression Sung Min couldn't quite read. Pride maybe, or grief. Or the complicated mathematics of a man realizing his daughter had found a mother figure in a teenager he'd hired out of desperation. She's good with the child, Sungmin observed one afternoon, watching the feed of Amara and Ji-woo making elaborate paper cranes at the kitchen table. Better than we had any right to expect. Hmm? Jin Hyuk's response was non-committal. Are you concerned about what? About how attached Ji-woo is becoming. About what happens when Miss Adebayo's visa situation resolves and she wants to leave. About run a deeper background check. Jin Hyuk's voice was quiet. The first one was surface level. I want everything. Family history, education records, why she really left Nigeria, why she ended up here. Everything. Sungmin nodded. You suspect something. I suspect, Jin Hyuk said slowly, that nobody ends up cleaning toilets in a foreign country at 19 without running from something. And I need to know what that something is before my daughter gets more attached to a ghost. The report came back 4 days later. Jin Hyuk read it twice, standing in his office at 11 p.m., while Seoul glittered below him like diamonds scattered on black velvet. She arrived in pajamas, modest cotton ones, looking every bit the teenager she was, with apprehension written across her face. It was late, past midnight. This wasn't a normal summons. Sit, he said, and this time his voice was different, softer, almost gentle. She sat. He slid the file across the desk. Dr. Emmanuel Adebayo, professor of childhood developmental psychology at the University of Lagos, published researcher, ran a clinic for traumatized children in refugee camps across West Africa, testified against government officials involved in child trafficking networks, murdered in his home 3 years ago in what police called a robbery gone wrong. They arrested no one, pursued no leads. Your family went into hiding. Your mother, your younger brother and sister. You fled to South Korea on a student visa you never intended to use for actual study. You've been sending money home to keep them safe, to keep them moving, to keep them alive. Amara's hands trembled in her lap. She didn't deny it, couldn't. I'm not here to hurt you, Jin Hyuk said quietly. I'm here to understand why you're qualified to reach my daughter when trained professionals failed. Now I know you're your father's daughter. You grew up watching him heal traumatized children. You learned by osmosis what others study for years. And you've been running from the same kind of violence that took my wife. We're not so different, you and I. A tear slid down Amara's cheek. She wiped it away angrily, embarrassed by the display of weakness. My wife's name was Seo Yeon, Jin Hyuk continued, and his voice carried a weight that made the air feel heavier. She was a prosecutor, specialized in organized crime cases. She was brilliant and stubborn and believed in justice the way most people believe in gravity. as a fundamental force that couldn't be argued with. She was prosecuting a case against one of my rivals, the Chungryong group. They couldn't threaten her directly without proving her case, so they made it look like an accident, car malfunction, brake failure on a mountain road. Jiwoo was in the back seat. She watched her mother's head. He stopped, breathed. She watched her mother die, and for 2 years she's been trapped in that moment, unable to speak, unable to move forward, until you sat with her in a stairwell and hummed a song your grandmother taught you. Amara's voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be honest. Why did you really sit with her that night? You could have walked away. Should have walked away. You were just a cleaning woman. It wasn't your responsibility. Amara looked at him then, really looked at him, and saw beneath the ice and steel to the wounded father underneath. Because I know what it's like to lose everything, she said. To have your whole world torn apart by violence you didn't deserve and couldn't prevent. And I know what it's like to be alone in the dark, crying where no one can hear you. Because if they hear you, they'll know you're broken and maybe they'll finish the job. I couldn't walk past that. I couldn't leave her alone. I couldn't. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, something else, recognition. His testimony was scheduled for 3 months before he was murdered, the same month that Seo Yon's car went off that cliff. They're connected. The same organization killed them both, and Amara has been under Chungryong surveillance since she entered South Korea. Not active surveillance, just passive monitoring, tracking her movements, her employment, waiting. Then 3 months ago, she started working at this building. 2 weeks later, she's Giwoo's nanny. It's not coincidence. Jin Hyuk stood, walked to the window. Seoul spread beneath him, a city built on networks and leverage and the understanding that everything, everyone, had a price. Do we have proof she's working with them? No, in fact, the evidence suggests otherwise. Chungryong didn't place her here. They're reacting to her presence. Surveillance increased after she moved into the penthouse. Intelligence suggests they see her proximity to Ji-woo as an opportunity they didn't create but intend to exploit. Exploit how? Unknown. But Park Dong-min has been asking questions about the African girl caring for your daughter. His people have been photographing her during Ji-woo's doctor visits, tracking her movements, building a file. Jin Hyuk's reflection in the window showed nothing. No fear, no rage, just the absolute stillness that preceded violence. She's bait, he said quietly. They're going to use her to draw us out, or they're going to take her to force my hand, or they're going to kill her, Sungmin finished, and make it look like you did it. Frame you for murdering the girl your daughter has attached to. Generate international outcry. African immigrant killed by Korean Mafia boss. Media exposure. Police investigation. Everything you've built to protect Ji-woo used to destroy her instead? Does Amara know? About the connection between her father and our enemies? No. About being surveilled? Unlikely. She's careful, but she's not trained. She doesn't recognize professional observation. Jin Hyuk turned from the window. Bring her here, now, and activate full security protocols. If Chungryong is planning to move against her, I want to know the moment they commit. 20 minutes later, Amara stood in Jin Hyuk's office in the clothes she'd slept in. Sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, with concern written across her face. Is Jiwoo okay? First question. Always the child first. Jiwoo is fine. This is about you. He gestured to the chair. Sit. She sat. She sat. He didn't ease into it, didn't cushion the blow, just told her the truth in clinical efficient sentences. Her father's testimony, Seo Yona's prosecution, the Chungryong group's involvement in both deaths, the surveillance, the photographs, the targeting. Did you know? He asked when he finished. When you sat with my daughter in that stairwell, when you accepted this position, did you know who I was, what your presence here would mean? Amara's face had gone ashen, her hands trembled in her lap. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know about any connection between my father's death and your wife's. I didn't even know who you were until after I was already hired. I just needed work, needed money to send home. Her voice broke. I would never use Jiwoo like that. Never. Jin Hyuk studied her face. He'd interrogated hundreds of people, could read deception like a language, could spot lies in the micro expressions most people didn't know they made. She was telling the truth. I believe you, he said, but belief doesn't change the situation. Park Dong-min knows you're here, knows my daughter is attached to you, and he's going to use that, either to hurt her to hurt me or to destroy what little peace we found. You're not safe here anymore? Then I'll leave. Amara stood up quickly. Right now, today, I'll disappear. Go to another city, another country, anywhere. Just please don't let them use me to hurt you. Please sit down. His voice was sharp enough that she sat automatically. You're not leaving. Running makes you vulnerable, makes you an easy target. If they take you, they'll use you as leverage, force me to make impossible choices. No, you stay here, under full protection. And we end this threat, permanently. How? Park Dong-min wants war. We give him one, on our terms, with our timeline. And when it's over, you and Gi-woo are safe. Both of you. Amara's eyes filled with tears she was too proud to let fall. Why? Why risk everything for me? I'm nobody. I'm nobody. Just some girl you hired because my daughter loves you. Jin Hyuk's voice cut through her protest. Because for the first time in 2 years, she's healing. Because you're the first person who's made her feel safe since her mother died. And because... He stopped, looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Because I won't let another woman die because of my enemies. Not again. Never again. It wasn't a romantic declaration. It was something fiercer. A vow. A line drawn in blood and determination. What do you need me to do? Amara's voice was steady now, resolved. Stay close to Ji-woo. Maintain routine. Act like nothing's changed, and trust that I will keep you both safe. Can you do that? She met his eyes. Yes. Good. Security will be increased but invisible. You won't see most of my people, but they'll be there. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you find Tae-young or you find me. Immediately, understood? Understood. She stood to leave, but he stopped her. Amara, she turned. I'm sorry for pulling you into this, for putting you in danger, don't, she shook her head. Don't apologize for giving me a chance to save Jae-woo, or for letting her save me. Whatever happens now, these last 6 weeks have been the first time since my father died that I've felt like I had a purpose. A family, a reason to wake up that wasn't just survival. Don't apologize for that. She left before he could respond. Jin Hyuk stood alone in his office, staring at surveillance photos of a 19-year-old girl who should have been in university, not trapped between mafia wars and international conspiracies. He made a decision. Park Dong-min wanted to use Amara as leverage? Fine, they'd let him try. And when he committed, when he revealed his full plan and exposed his people, Jin Hyuk would dismantle the Chungryong group so completely that history would forget they ever existed. He picked up his phone and called Tae-young. We're going to war, gather everyone, and find out where Park Dong-min feels safest. Because that's where we're going to destroy him. The war room convened at 3 a.m. in Jin Hyuk's private office. Seung-min stood at the head of the table with a digital map of Seoul projected on the wall behind him. Red dots marked Chungryong territory. Blue dots marked Biko Holdings. Yellow dots marked neutral zones where both organizations operated under uneasy truces. Tiang leaned against the wall, arms crossed, face expressionless. Mrs. Kang sat in the corner. An unusual inclusion, but she'd been with Jin Hyuk's family for 30 years and knew more about their enemies than most intelligence operatives, and Amara. Jin Hyuk had insisted she be present. This concerns her. She deserves to know the plan. She sat between Tae-young and Mrs. Kang, looking impossibly young in the lamplight, but her spine was straight and her eyes were clear. Scared, yes, but not broken. Park Dong-min removed his knee and auto-trailed the assuming an advantage, highlighting a date 3 days away. It's the annual fundraiser for children's hospitals. Every major organization sends representatives, politicians, business leaders, both legitimate and otherwise. Public venue. Perfect cover for an incident that can transform into tragic accident. What kind of incident? Amara's voice was quiet but steady. Seung-min looked at Jin Hyuk, who nodded permission to continue. Best intelligence suggests kidnapping attempt. You'll be attending as Ji-woo's guardian, first public appearance in that role. Chongryong will use the crowd chaos to extract you from the venue. Once they have you, they'll contact Jin Hyuk SSI with demands. Probably exchange you for territory concessions or business advantages, standard leverage play, or they'll kill her and frame you for it, Young added bluntly. Generate international incident. African immigrant murdered by Korean mafia boss. Media firestorm. Police investigation you can't avoid. Either way, they win. Amara absorbed this information with a calmness that impressed Jin Hyuk. So what's the counterplay? We let them try, Jin Hyuk said, and we catch them in the act. With witnesses, with evidence, with everything we need to dismantle their organization legally and publicly. Mrs. Kang leaned forward. You're using the girl as bait. I'm using their plan against them. There's a difference. A difference that might get her killed. Not if we do this right. Jin Hyuk looked at Amara. You don't have to agree to this. We can find another way. Relocate you, hide you. But this is the fastest, cleanest solution. One night controlled risk, and after, you're safe. Ji-woo is safe. Everyone. Amara was quiet for a long moment. Then, what do you need me to do? Sung-min pulled up building schematics. The gala is at the Shilla Hotel. Main ballroom holds 800 guests. 5 exits. Security will be heavy but distributed. We'll have 20 of our people positioned as hotel staff, security, even guests. Ti-yang will be your visible escort. Close enough to intervene, far enough that you don't look heavily guarded. Chungryong will make their move during the speech portion, Tiang continued. Lights dimmed for presentation, crowd focused on stage. They'll use the distraction to approach you. Probably 2 operatives disguised as hotel staff. They'll say there's an emergency with Jiwoo, something to get you moving toward an exit without resistance. Jiwoo won't actually be there, Jin-hik added quickly, seeing Amara's alarm. She stays home with Mrs. Kang and 4 of my best people. Full lockdown. The emergency will be fabricated. When they move you toward the exit, you go, Sung-min said. Don't resist, don't fight. Let them think it's working. Ti-young will follow at distance. Once they've revealed themselves fully, accomplices, vehicles, communication with Park Jung-min, we move, arrest them publicly. With prosecutors present, with media cameras, frame it as heroic intervention, not gang warfare. Mrs. Kang made a disapproving sound. Too many variables. Too much can go wrong. Everything can go wrong, Jin Hyuk agreed. But doing nothing guarantees they'll strike eventually, on their timeline, their terms. This way we control the battlefield. He looked at Amara. I won't lie to you. There's risk. Real risk. But I promise you, I will not let them take you. You'll have panic button, earpiece for communication, and me, his voice dropped. I'll be in that ballroom watching, and if anything deviates from the plan, if you're in any danger I can't control, I'll burn the entire operation and get you out. Consequences be damned. Amara studied his face, saw the truth there, the vow. Okay, she said, I'll do it. Mrs. Kang shook her head. Foolish girl. Brave girl, Ti-young corrected quietly. Sung-min began outlining tactical details, positions, signals, backup plans stacked on backup plans, but Jin Hyuk stopped listening. He was watching Amara absorb information, ask clarifying questions, prepare herself to walk into danger because it meant protecting Gi-woo. She was 19. Should have been worrying about university exams and dating and all the normal concerns of youth. Instead, she was strategizing how to survive a kidnapping attempt by international criminals. A woman in an elaborate gown took the stage to thank everyone for their generous contributions to children's medical research. Applause, polite attention. 8:03 p.m. Someone touched Amara's elbow. She turned. A young man in hotel staff uniform, maybe mid-20s, Korean, with eyes that didn't match his polite smile. Miss Adebayo, he said in accented English. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been an incident at the residence. Miss Ji-woo is asking for you. Mr. Park's security has requested you return immediately. Amara's blood froze, but she'd been prepared for exactly this lie. What kind of incident? Keep him talking. Let the surveillance capture everything. Nothing serious, but the young miss is distressed. If you'll come with me, there's a car waiting. I should inform Jin Hyuk-sa. He's already been notified. Please, miss, this way. The man's hand on her elbow was gentle but insistent. A second man in matching uniform appeared at her other side. Tiang was 10 feet away, pretending to study his phone, but every muscle coiled. In her earpiece, Jin Hyuk's voice cold and calm. Let them move you. We're tracking. I'm right behind you. Amara allowed herself to be guided toward a side exit. Through the crowd. Past security who didn't look twice at hotel staff escorting a guest. Down a corridor lined with oil paintings of mountains and traditional Korean scenes, the two men flanked her, professional, efficient. Not threatening yet, they reached a service exit. A black sedan waited outside, engine running. Inside, please, the first man said. His English was getting worse, his Korean accent thicker, nervous. I'd prefer to wait for Jin Hyuk's security. The second man's hand moved toward his jacket, not drawing, just reminding her he could. Inside, now. Amara's hand found the panic button in her clutch purse. But before she could press it, three things happened simultaneously. The sedan's back door opened and Park Dong-min himself stepped out, mid-50s, expensive suit, smile like a shark. T. Yang appeared behind the two operatives with a gun in each hand and an expression that promised death, and Jin Hyuk emerged from the service exit with Seung Min and 6 men in tactical gear, surrounding the sedan like a military operation. Dong Min. Jin Hyuk's voice was pleasant, conversational, terrifying. I appreciate you accepting my invitation. Park Dong-min's smile didn't falter, but his eyes calculated rapidly. Jin Hyuk, I'm simply helping a distressed employee reach. Stop, Jin Hyuk gestured and his people moved with choreographed precision. The two operatives were disarmed and zip-tied in under 10 seconds. More men emerged from positions around the parking area, hotel security, police in plainclothes, prosecutors with badges displayed. Not a gang ambush, a legal operation. You're under arrest, said a woman in a sharp suit, displaying credentials. Attempted kidnapping, conspiracy, trafficking conspiracy based on evidence your organization has been transporting. This is absurd. Park Dong-min's composure cracked. You have no authority. Actually, we have extensive authority and extensive evidence. Collected over 6 months, your communications, your financial records. Testimony from 3 of your own people who decided cooperation was preferable to prison. The prosecutor smiled. Jin Hyuk C. has been very helpful in our investigation. Amara stood frozen, watching Seoul's criminal underworld collide with actual law enforcement, watching months of planning unfold in under 3 minutes. Jin Hyuk approached her, careful not to touch but close enough that she could feel his presence like gravity. You're safe, he said quietly. It's over. But it wasn't over. From inside the sedan, someone moved. 4th person they hadn't accounted for. Gun drawn. Pointed not at Jin Hyuk but at Amara because, of course, if you can't win, take something valuable when you fall. Time fractured. Ti Young shouted a warning. Jin Hyuk moved, pure instinct, putting himself between Amara and the gun. Seung Min drew his weapon. Police surged forward. The shot was deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. And then silence. The shooter was on the ground, taken down by 3 simultaneous gunshots from police and Ti Yang. Not dead, but thoroughly neutralized. But Jin Hyuk was also on the ground, blood spreading across his white shirt. High on the shoulder, not fatal but not minor. No. Amara dropped beside him, hands already applying pressure to the wound like her father had taught her years ago in Nigerian refugee camps. Stay still, don't move. Someone call an ambulance. Already called, Seungmin said, phone to his ear. 2 minutes out. Jin Hyuk looked up at Amara with an expression caught between pain and something softer. Told you, he said, voice strained. Both. Keep you both safe, promised. You idiot, tears streamed down her face. You absolute idiot. You could have been killed. Couldn't let them hurt you. Simple statement, absolute truth. The ambulance arrived. AMT loaded Jin Hyuk onto a stretcher while he argued he was fine. It was just a shoulder wound, he'd had worse. Amara climbed into the ambulance without being invited. Family only, an EMT protested. She's family, Jin Hyuk said firmly. She stays. At the hospital, while surgeons extracted the bullet and repaired damage, Amara sat in the waiting room with Seung Min and Tiang. Mrs. Kang arrived with Ji Woo, who'd been told only that Appa had to go to the hospital but was okay. The little girl looked at Amara with wide, frightened eyes, still silent, still carrying her mother's death like a stone. Amara knelt down, pulled Jiwoo into her arms. Your dad is fine, sweetheart. He's strong. He's going to be okay, I promise. Jiwoo buried her face in Amara's shoulder. And then, so quiet Amara almost missed it. You came back. Amara froze. Everyone in the waiting room froze. Jiwoo's voice, hoarse from disuse, fragile as new ice. But there. You came back, the child repeated, pulling away to look at Amara's face. I was scared you wouldn't come back. Like Mama didn't come back. Tears blurred Amara's vision. I'll always come back, baby. Always, I promise. Promise? I promise. Jiwoo's small hand gripped Amara's. Then the word that changed everything. Mom, it was a question, a hope, a plea for permission to love someone new without betraying the memory of someone lost. Amara pulled Jiwoo close, crying too hard to speak, just nodding against the child's hair. When she finally found words, they came out broken and beautiful. Yes, sweetheart. Yes, I'm here. Mom's here, always. The waiting room was silent except for Mrs. Kang's quiet sniffling and Ti Young's suspiciously bright eyes and Seung Min's careful study of the ceiling tiles. 20 minutes later, a surgeon emerged. Family of Park Jin-hyuk, everyone stood. He's stable. Surgery went well. No permanent damage. He's asking for his daughter and someone named Amara. They crowded into recovery together. Jin-hyuk was pale but alert, hooked to monitors and IV drips, looking thoroughly annoyed at his own weakness. Then he saw Gi-woo, saw his daughter walking toward his hospital bed, saw her climb up carefully, mindful of tubes and wires, and heard her speak. Appa, you're okay. Mom said you'd be okay. Jin-hyuk's eyes found Amara's across the room. The word hung between them. Mom. Jiwoo-ya, his voice cracked. You're talking. Mom came back, Jiwoo explained seriously. So I knew you would too. People who love us come back. And Jin-hyuk, the wolf of Gangnam who never showed weakness, who never let emotion crack his armor, pulled his daughter close with his good arm and cried. Great, shaking sobs that released 2 years of grief and guilt and the terrible weight of being unable to help his own child. Amara started to leave, give them privacy, let them have this moment, but Jin-hyuk's voice stopped her. Stay, not a command, a request, please, stay. So she stayed. And when Ji-woo reached out one small hand to Amara, bridging the space between hospital bed and doorway, Amara took it. 3 people Golea stairs broken by different violences, bound by different losses, connected by the strange mathematics of survival and love and the family you build when the one you were born into has been shattered. Thank you, Jin-hyuk said quietly, holding his daughter with one arm, his eyes on Amara. For everything. For her, for this, Amara smiled through tears. Thank you for letting me stay. For giving us both a chance to heal. We're not done healing, Jin-hyuk said. This is just the beginning. Good, Amara replied. I'm not going anywhere. Jiwoo, snuggled against her father's chest, already half asleep from emotional exhaustion, murmured, Good, because we're family now, and family stays. It was the truest thing any of them had ever heard. 3 months after the gala, Seoul looked the same, but everything was different. Park Dong-min was serving 15 years for kidnapping conspiracy, trafficking violations, and a dozen other charges that prosecutors had been building for months, with Jin-hyuk's covert assistance. The Chongryeong group fractured without leadership, some members arrested, others absorbed into rival organizations, the rest disappearing into whatever holes people disappear into when their empire crumbles. The Biko faction remained, but quieter now. More selective. Jin-hyuk had started transitioning assets toward legitimate business, real estate development, technology investments, luxury hospitality. It would take years, maybe decades, but the trajectory was clear. Away from the shadows and towards something that wouldn't leave his daughter orphaned if enemies struck again. Amara's work authorization came through in record time, helped by Jin-hyuk's lawyers and some strategic pressure on immigration officials. Her mother and siblings were scheduled to arrive in Seoul in 2 months. Asylum applications approved, family reunification granted. She'd cried for an hour when the confirmation came through. Ji-woo had climbed into her lap and patted her face, saying, Happy tears, Mom. in Korean, still mixing languages like she was building her own vocabulary from two worlds. Mrs. Kang had stopped being hostile and become something stranger, protective, almost maternal. She'd taken over teaching Ji-woo proper Korean etiquette and traditional culture, but she'd also started teaching him Mara, sitting with her over tea and explaining the nuances of language and custom with surprising patience. If you're to be part of this family, Mrs. Kang had said with characteristic bluntness, you should understand what that means. Our ways, our traditions, not to erase where you come from, but to build bridges between what you are and what we are. Amaya had enrolled in online university courses, finishing her degree in childhood psychology, the path her father had started her years ago. She studied late at night after Ji-woo was asleep, in the bedroom that no longer felt like borrowed space but like home. Jin-hyuk's shoulder had healed. Physical therapy twice a week, full mobility returned. The scar was permanent, a thin white line across his shoulder blade that he saw every morning in the mirror, a reminder of the night he'd chosen to be someone's shield instead of someone's sword. He and Amara hadn't defined what they were to each other. It was complicated. She was 19, now 20. He was 32. She was technically his employee, though they'd long since stopped pretending the relationship was just professional. There was care between them. Respect. A connection forged in crisis and deepened through daily proximity, but also caution. Neither rushed, neither pushed. They were co-parenting Ji-woo, who was thriving in ways that seemed miraculous to everyone who'd known her during the silent years. She attended a private school now, half days at first, working up to full time. She spoke in full sentences, mixing Korean and English and occasional Ijbo words Amara taught her. She had nightmares sometimes still, but less frequently. And when they came, she'd go to Amara's room, or Jin-hyuk's room, or sometimes crawl between both of them in Jin-hyuk's massive bed, forming a bridge between the two adults she'd claimed as her parents. One evening in December, after Ji-woo was asleep, Amara found Jin-hyuk on the penthouse balcony overlooking Seoul. He'd been spending more time out there lately, thinking, processing, figuring out who he was becoming now that he wasn't just surviving. "Can't sleep?" she asked, joining him at the railing. "Thinking," he replied. "About a lot of things? Good things or bad things? Both, mostly good." He looked at her. "Your family arrives in 3 weeks? I know. I'm terrified, excited, both. Jiwoo keeps asking if she can call your mother grandma." Amara laughed. "My mother will love that. She'll spoil Giwoo absolutely rotten." "Good. She deserves to be spoiled." He paused. "You know this changes everything, right? When your family arrives, you'll have options, independence. You won't need this job, won't need me." Amara turned to face him fully. "Is that what you think? That I'm only here because I have no other choice? I think I hired you when you were desperate and vulnerable. I think you've stayed because leaving would hurt Jiwoo. I think you're kind enough to sacrifice your own freedom for a child who isn't even yours." "She is mine," Amara said firmly. "Maybe not biologically, but in every way that matters, and I'm not staying out of obligation. I'm staying because this is my family now. You, Gi, Woo." Even Mrs. Kang with her endless lectures about proper tea ceremony. "This is where I belong." Jin Hyuk studied her face in the city lights. "You're 20 years old. You should be in university, dating people your own age, living a life that isn't defined by trauma and mafia politics and raising someone else's child." "I'm enrolled in university. I'm raising a child I chose to love, and as for dating," she stepped closer. "I'm exactly where I want to be, with exactly who I want to be with. Unless you're trying to tell me you want me to leave." "No." The word came out too quickly, too honestly. "God, no. I just need you to know that you have choices. That staying here, staying with us, is a choice, not an obligation." "Then I choose this," Amara said simply. "I choose Jiwoo. I choose this family. I choose." She stopped suddenly, shy. "Choose what?" His voice was soft. "You," she whispered. "If that's allowed, if I'm not completely misreading everything." If he kissed her, gentle and careful and terrified and hopeful all at once. A first kiss between two people who'd been circling each other for months, held back by circumstances and propriety and fear. When they pulled apart, Amara was smiling. "So, that's new." "Yeah." Jin Hyuk looked stunned by his own impulsiveness. "Sorry, I should have asked first." I should have done that months ago, Amara finished. For someone terrifying, you're remarkably slow sometimes. He laughed. Actually laughed. We should probably talk about this. About what this means. About tomorrow, Amara interrupted. Tonight? Let's just be happy. We've earned that, don't you think? Yeah, he agreed, we have. They stood together on the balcony, soul sprawling beneath them in electric glory. Two people who should never have met building something impossible from the wreckage of their separate grief. Inside, Jiwoo slept peacefully, dreaming whatever 6-year-olds dream when they finally feel safe. Downstairs, Mrs. Kang was preparing breakfast ingredients for the morning, muttering about inappropriate attachments, but with a small smile that suggested approval she'd never admit out loud. And somewhere across the city, Amara's mother was packing suitcases for a journey to a country she'd never seen, trusting her daughter's promise that safety and family waited on the other side. The penthouse that had been a museum of grief was becoming a home, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. You know, Amara said quietly, 6 months ago I was cleaning this building at 3 a.m., trying to figure out how to survive until next week. Now I'm standing here with you, raising the most amazing kid, waiting for my family to arrive, and actually believing in the future. How did this happen? You sat down in his stairwell with a crying child, Jin Hyuk said, and everything changed. For both of us, for all three of us, Amara corrected. All three of us, he agreed. They went inside as the temperature dropped, but paused at Ji Woo's doorway to check on her. The child was sprawled across her bed in that boneless way children sleep when they feel completely secure. Her latest drawing was pinned to the wall. 3 people holding hands under a tree. One tall, one medium, one small. Family. She's going to be okay, Amara whispered. We're all going to be okay, Jin Hyuk replied. And for the first time in 2 years, he actually believed it. This is the story of how a 19-year-old girl who cleaned floors for survival became a mother. How a mafia boss who'd forgotten how to feel learned to love again. How a silent child found her voice by finding someone who knew how to listen. This is the story of families that aren't born but built. Of love that arrives in unexpected packages, speaking unfamiliar languages, carried on the shoulders of the desperate and brave. Sometimes the person who saves you is the one you're supposed to be saving. Sometimes strength looks like sitting in a stairwell, humming a lullaby to a stranger's child. Sometimes power is knowing when to accept help instead of insisting you can carry everything alone. Amara's family arrived 3 weeks later. Her mother cried when she saw Gi-woo and immediately declared her a granddaughter. Her siblings adapted to Seoul with the resilience of youth. The penthouse became loud with laughter in multiple languages and the beautiful chaos of a real family. Jin Hyuk proposed 6 months after that, not with a grand gesture, but with a quiet question on another balcony evening. Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you? Amara said yes. They married in a small ceremony that blended Korean and Nigerian traditions. Gi-woo was flower girl, taking her job with utmost seriousness. Mrs. Kang cried and claimed it was allergies. Sung-min gave a toast about statistical improbability. Tiang got drunk and admitted he'd known from day one that Jin Hyuk was completely gone for the girl who hummed in stairwells. But that's another story. This one ends here, in a penthouse in Seoul, with 3 people who found each other at the ruins of their separate traumas and built something beautiful from the wreckage. If you believe that family isn't about blood, but about who shows up when your world is ending, subscribe now. Comment below where you're watching from and what story you want to hear next. Should we follow Amara's adjustment to being a mafia wife? Should we explore Jiwoo growing up between 2 cultures? Should we tell the story of Amara's mother navigating Seoul as a Nigerian immigrant? Should we dive into how Jin Hyuk left the criminal world entirely? You decide, because this story, it's only just begun. And somewhere in Seoul, a child who was once silent is laughing. A man who was once ice has learned to thaw. A woman who was once invisible has become the center of a family's gravity. And that, more than any ending, is the miracle worth telling.